Okay, so we're going to do some trigonometry. The first thing when you're doing trigonometry is you have to label the sides. Now, because it's a right angle triangle, we know we're going to use SOHCAHTOA, not the sine or cosine rule. So we're just using SOHCAHTOA here in this case. So when we're labelling the sides, we're going to label them hype, which is the hypotenuse, which is the longest side, the opposite side, which is opposite the given angle, and then the adjacent side, which is next to the angle. Once you've got your sides labelled, you then need to find which side has no information with it. So we can see that the hypotenuse is 10 centimetres, the opposite side is P, so that's the value that we're actually trying to find, and the adjacent side has no information, so therefore we're going to get rid of that one. Then we need to write down SOHCAHTOA and identify which one of these we're going to be working with. So we've been given the opposite and the hypotenuse. So as we can see, it's SO that includes the opposite and the hypotenuse. We then need to know what rule that applies to. So the rule is sine of the angle is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. Now, notice the opposite side comes first in SO, so therefore the opposite goes on the top. And then the hypotenuse comes second, and that goes on the bottom. It would have been the same with any of these. So Ka means cos of the angle equals, and then it's adjacent over hypotenuse. And then it's tan again of the angle equals opposite over adjacent. But for this one, we're looking at sine. So we're going to now, once we've got the rules sorted, the next step is to put in any information that you know. So we've got sine of the angle. Do we know the angle? Yes, that was 58. And then the opposite side, that is P, that's our unknown. But the hypotenuse, that was 10, so I do know that. Once we're at this stage, it's then a solve an equation. So solve an equation means you're going to get that dotted line, okay, and we're going to start doing opposites. So we're trying to get P on its own, so therefore we need to get rid of the divide by 10. So in order to get rid of divide by 10, I do the opposite and I times by 10 on both sides. Once I've times by 10, I need to look for what cancels, and the 10s cancel out. So we're going to rewrite this nicely as to what we've got. So we've got P left on this side equals, and then 10 times sine of 58. It's just a case now of typing that into our calculator and getting our final answer. Remember, when you are typing it into your calculator, make sure that you use the brackets. So once you do 10 times sine of 58, make sure you close those brackets before clicking equals. Okay, so to one decimal place then, our answer is 8.5. Now, what's really important is that wouldn't be our final answer that we'd put in the dotted line on this test. We would have to include units. So we were actually working in centimetres, so the length of that line is going to be 8.5 centimetres, and that's our final answer. Okay, we're going to look at another question that's fairly similar, but there's just a little hurdle at the start that you've got to get over. So it's giving us a little bit of information here. So we've got a triangle ABC, which has a right angle, so that should make us think straight away this is SOHCAHTOA, not sine or cosine rule. We have the angle BAC is 25 and AC is 12.5, so that information is actually on the diagram there as well. And we're having to calculate the length of AB. So that's the bottom line, so I'm going to label that X because that's our unknown that we're trying to find. Okay, now we need to start then. First thing, labelling the sides. So we have the longest side here, which is going to be the hypotenuse, and then the opposite side, which is opposite that given angle, and then the final side is the adjacent. Okay, first thing we've got to do is cross out the side with no information. So the hypotenuse is 12.5 and x is our adjacent side, meaning the opposite side is the one with no information. Then I begin writing SOHCAHTOA. So I've got SOHCAHTOA down. Okay, so this time we're working with the adjacent and the hypotenuse, so it's actually going to be Ka in the middle. So remember, C stands for cos, and then it's always of the angle, and then equals, adjacent is first, so that goes on the top, and hypotenuse is second, so that goes on the bottom. Once I've got my rule, I then need to input the values that I've been given. So I've got cos of the angle, which is 25, equals adjacent, which was x, over hypotenuse, which is 12.5. I now have a solving equation. So I need my dotted line, which I've got to remember what I do to one side, I do to the other, and we've got to be doing opposites. So I want to get rid of divide by 12.5, so the opposite will be timesing by 12.5. Now I can't just do it to that side, I've also got to do it to the other side. And then I've got to look for what cancels. So the 12.5s cancel over here. And then when I rewrite that nicely, I get x equals 12.5 times cos of 25. And it's now just a case, I know what x is equal to, but I need to make that into an actual value rather than a sum. So I'm going to type that into my calculator, so I get 12.5 times cos of 25, which comes out at, to one decimal place, 11.3. Now remember, it's not going to be your final answer in the exam because you don't want to lose marks for not having units. So we need to look at the units, which was actually centimetres again. So it's 11.3 centimetres for our final answer.